I will forgive their iniquity and their sin, and remember their sin no more. Now this is not like it was in the Old Covenant when, as we're told in the book of Hebrews, the animal sacrifices were made year by year, year by year, year by year. And it was a reminder that the same sacrifices had to be offered over and over and over again, which was a reminder of the fact that those sins were not really taken away. They were temporarily covered, we might say, even in a symbolic way. But the symbol was pointing towards a reality which was coming. Now all of this is leading towards the arrival on the scene of Jesus, who comes to make all of this a reality. Jesus came to do what the animal sacrifices pictured, which was to take away sins. You see, and then when he's talking about this new covenant, he's able to say, I will forgive their iniquity and their sin, remember their sin no more. Now when we read back in Isaiah, when it said, remember not the former things, don't think about the past. This is sometimes a real challenge with people, because dealing with this very fact right here, I will forgive their iniquity, I will remember their sin no more. Now this is what God says. This is what God says to us based on what Jesus did. And Jesus came to ratify this very thing. You remember at the Last Supper, and when we take communion, I always read this. Jesus took the cup and he said, this is my blood of the new covenant. My blood of the new arrangement, of the new situation, of the New Testament, shed for you. You know, in ancient societies, in ancient cultures, blood covenants were very common. And an arrangement, if it was serious, and a serious agreement between, let's say, two tribes or two clans or even two individuals, it was ratified by blood. Oftentimes the parties would shed their own blood and mix it sometimes in a mixture in a drink, and even drink that mixture. And it symbolized or signified that their blood, the blood of each party, was shed in order to make certain and binding this covenant. When Jesus took the cup at the Last Supper, it was as though he's saying, I will stand in your place and I will offer my blood as the blood of the agreement, or as the blood of the covenant for you, and we will make a new covenant, and I will offer my blood. All he says to the disciples is, here it is, you take it and drink it. He made them all a participant, and we celebrate that when we take the communion. But one of the factors, or one of the realities is, I will forgive their iniquity and I will remember their sin no more. Now, if he doesn't, we shouldn't either. See, if he doesn't, we shouldn't either. Many of you know who John Plummer is. He's a man here in Alva, and he goes with me to the prison sometimes when he's able to on Sunday nights. He also works with some national prison ministries, and he goes to Crabtree. Now, Crabtree is a little different kind of prison. It's a maximum security prison, whereas this is a minimum, and it's mostly young drug offenders. People here haven't done really, the worst kinds of crimes. No murderers here, no, violent criminals here. These are mostly drug offenders. But John goes over to Crabtree, where there are some people who've done some more serious things. And he told me that there's a man that he's been trying to minister to there. And he said, this man, I just can't seem to get through to him. He's, I try to tell him about, Jesus and the forgiveness of the Lord, and he's so consumed with guilt over what he's done, I can't seem to get through to him. So I gave John some books. I said, take these books to him, let him read these. He said, well, he read these, but he doesn't seem to make any impact. I said, well, here's my address. Ask him if he'd write to me, and I'll take a crack at it. That's kind of what I thought. So this man did write to me, and I wrote back, and he told me what he'd done, and I don't want to go into the details, but let's just say that I agreed with him that yes, it was very bad. And if I told you about it, you would agree, yes, that's very bad. And some people might say, I don't know how God can forgive that. But see, I have in the Bible the very fact that God can, for a person who is willing to receive his forgiveness, God can forgive anything and everything. And I wrote him back and told him that. And I quoted scriptures like this to him. He wrote me back again as though I had never said anything. He was totally, I might say, consumed with obsessing about what he has done, which everyone agrees it's bad. And I told him, I agree with you, that's bad. But Jesus died on the cross for sins, bad and not bad, if there are any that are not bad. All sins, I think, are just as equally serious, though we, in our scale of reckoning, don't always consider them that way. But it's very hard. It was hard for me, and I'm not sure that I ever did really break through to him and get him to see that. But the only way to break through is to just keep reiterating the fact that Jesus knew everything that we would be guilty of ahead of time. and to save us and to relieve us of that. You see, that guilt separates us from a clean and a clear relationship with God. And as long as we're looking back and feeling guilty about things, we don't have an open and a free relationship with God. Did you know that if a person feels guilty, it stops them from coming freely to the Lord and receiving what they need from the Lord? But see, in the book of Hebrews, we're told that He's given us boldness to come freely to the throne of grace. The throne of grace, to receive grace and mercy at any time of need. He calls His throne not a judgment seat, but a throne of grace. But what keeps us out is not God, but ourselves. And so we need to take this seriously here. He says, I will forgive their iniquity and their sins, and I will remember their sin no more. That's something new. That is a new arrangement made by Jesus, who is to come. But the other thing I want to call your attention to is verse 33 and the beginning of 34. Look at this. He said, this shall be the covenant I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts, and I will write it in their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Now, what do you suppose that it means when he says, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts? Again, does it mean that he is going to take a ballpoint pen and open up our literal heart and write with a ballpoint pen and write the Ten Commandments down on our heart, on the actual organ of our heart? Well, no, of course, it doesn't mean that. And I would say even if you could get a surgeon to tattoo your heart with the Ten Commandments, that wouldn't really do it, would it? That wouldn't really accomplish what needs to be accomplished. What he's saying in this is what was formerly on the outside in tables of stone that people looked at and tried to conform to, I'm going to put it on the inside as an inward nature. Instead of looking at it and saying, boy, I know I need to live up to that. I know I need to do better, and I'm going to try better. Especially, this time of year when the New Year rolls around, we're prone to saying, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. I'm going to try harder. Now, I'm not going to take a survey today and ask you how well that works out every time. But, I'm going to exercise every day, and I'm going to ride my exercise bike, and I'm going to do this. And oftentimes, we start off well, but something happens, and, it's because trying to conform to something on the outside is harder, or it's almost impossible, we might say. But what God does is He doesn't say, I'm going to give you something on the outside to look at and try to conform to. He says, in this new covenant, in this new arrangement, I will put on the inside what used to be on the outside. And on the inside it will, see, when His laws and His nature is on the inside, it exerts a pressure on the inside to do the right thing, to do that which is pleasing to God. In fact, the Ten Commandments, 10 specific things limited to 10. On the inside, it's a new nature, and it's not just limited to 10 things. It's everything. It covers we have the sense of and the inward reality of the presence of God leading us and guiding us. In fact, not just to not do what, like many of the Ten Commandments are negative. Let's say, thou shalt not kill. So on the inside, we don't just have a new nature that says, don't kill that person, but on the contrary, not only don't kill them, but love them. See, not only don't steal from them, but give to them. It's the very nature of God, and it's so far superior to the former arrangement. He says, I will write my law in their inward parts. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. Meaning a new nature, His very nature. Verse 34, notice this. They shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord. In other words, I don't have to exhort you saying, know the Lord, because He says, they shall all know me. He says, in other words, I will have a personal, first-hand relationship with each and every one of them, the participants of this new covenant.